It is another beautiful Thursday night, May 2nd now in Northern Alberta. And actually, was just reminiscing with a buddy the other day that it was 3 days from today, May 5th, last year, was when we had our local Sturgeon Creek wildfire start. So it's a little bit cooler, a little bit wetter. Happy to see some of the snowfall throughout southern Alberta, central Alberta, and we're getting some rain up here. So keep it coming, whoever's responsible for the rain, and I really appreciate that. Before I bring on my guest tonight to Wagons West, I just, there was a couple of Rumble rants that I actually missed on some of the other episodes, and finally I found where they were. So I'm just going to share the screen, and I would, better late than never, kind of read those. And here we go. Boom. So way back when I was talking to Dr. William Mackis, Neva Violet said, "Thank you for everything you both are doing for our country and families." And thank you for your support there, Neva. I love to bring people onto the show that are actively doing things to better their communities, to better their world. And tonight's guest is no exception to that. And we'll get to that in a moment. With my interview last week with Mr. Jeremy McKenzie, we have two here. Think You Can, Think You Can't. Either way, you're right, by Henry Ford. And that applies tonight as well. You know, we said last week that nothing great was ever accomplished by being realistic. And I think that is absolutely true. And if you really pour your heart and your soul and you believe in it and you follow through, I think you can actually achieve great things. And Snow Orchid Twin says, "Good laughter here and loads of truth bombs." So that's what we try to do here. Try to keep it real, try to keep it true. And anyways, I digress. Our guest tonight, wonderful guest. I don't know if they call her a political activist. She's definitely for civic engagement. And I met this guest in 2022. I'll bring her on and we can kind of tell that story. Please welcome on Miss Benita Pedersen. Benita, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. I'm so happy to be your guest, TJ. Thanks for having me.
I am, what's this? Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. Yes, Benita, that is correct. Yeah, well, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
Those are words I used to live by. Well, I still try to live by, but it was one of my favorite quotes for at least 10 years. And I think one of your supporters had written something similar. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm going to put nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm, because it's something I live by. I feel if we're going to make a difference, we need to make it a bit exciting, make it a bit fun, throw some enthusiasm in there, and that's how we make the change.
Yeah, you know, on our side of things, and we'll get into that, there is a lot of kind of black pill, no hope, you know, doom and gloom. And you, Benita, are like a perennial white pill. So it's great to have you around. And I actually met Benita in 2022, and I've shared my story on the show before that. Is there a fan going on back there?
Oh, sorry. I might have something here. I'll see what I can do.
No worries. I met Benita when I came up to the campaign launch for Todd Lowen for his leadership campaign for the UCP. And I just kind of was winging it and drove up from Edmonton and didn't know who to really get in touch with or contact to see, you know, if I could actually be there or what was allowed or expected. And I saw this lady at the front setting up a tripod with a camera. And I'm like, okay, well, that must be the media person. I'll go talk to this person. And that happened to be you, Benita. And you were much like me. You just kind of came up on your own accord to support someone that you believed in. And since then, I've seen you not only just on the political campaign trail, I've seen you at freedom rallies. I've seen you pop up all over Alberta for various causes. You recently did a stream going out to the carbon tax protest near Cochrane, I think, if I'm correct. And other things. You're down in Lethbridge for the Coots Boys. You've been all over the place, and you've really been engaging with people in Alberta and encouraging them to get involved on the local level. So I'm really excited to dig into that. Before we kind of get into what some of the things that you've done, maybe we can kind of back up and give us a bit of your history and how you got kind of into this mode of thinking or mode of acting. You have a company, All Fired Up for Freedom, and maybe you can kind of start with that. How did that start, and what was your journey like beginning this?
Well, there were times back in 2020 when I had concerns about various government policy. But back in 2020, I didn't know what to do about it. And then in January of 2021, I learned of some people pushing back. And so in February of 2021, I started thinking, well, how can I push back? And my background before that time had been, I'm a workshop facilitator, I'm an event coordinator, I'm a karaoke hostess and a DJ. Those are all things I did pre-COVID. And so in February of 2021, I decided I had to take all the skills and resources that I had brought together in all of my previous positions and use it to rally and push back against policies that are unacceptable. And this is at the municipal level, provincial level, federal level. So I work at all three levels simultaneously, basically. And of course, I learned over time that I can't do much alone. We are more powerful when we are in numbers. And so I'm still working at building teams and communities across Alberta. I help some outside the province as well. And what we need to do is get organized to push back against poor policy. And I have this sort of eternal optimism, TJ. No matter how dark someone presents the situation, I always feel a spark of hope. And one of the roots of my positive energy is no matter what the circumstances, I find something to celebrate. And even now, this whole discussion around Bill 20, for example, the fact that they're looking at the Municipal Governance Act, they're looking at making changes. That's something I've been talking with people about for months. The Municipal Governance Act needs to be changed. And so now it's happening, and it's in discussion, and it's in the front. Everybody's looking at it now. So I see the progress, even if the amendments they put together thus far aren't perfect. It's still progress.
Yeah, you say you have that optimism. I use the term perennial white pill because you always seem to be cheery and positive, regardless of kind of what's going on around you. And it brings a nice balance. And in our community, there's a lot of people that would say there is no political solution. And if I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of right there at certain levels. I don't think it's true at all levels across the board in every circumstance, but I think it is kind of certainly pointing to that way. But you were kind of a living proof that at the very least, on a local level, that is not the case, that you can have great effect. And you've been, of course, in the headlines, not only on our side as a champion for freedom, but you've been in the headlines on the other side of things as this big, scary person that's going to be hates LGBT people and, is a bigot and all the stuff and all those badges that, of course, we were proudly fighting for what's right. But you kind of became notorious in the town of Westlock when they recently had a vote to ban pride crosswalks. I think broad strokes. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, it came to my attention in late May of 2023 that the town of Westlock had plans to paint a symbol on the crosswalk that many people consider to be a contentious symbol. And some people even consider it to be an inappropriate symbol because of what it could represent. And so I realized the mood of many people in the community, and I decided to take action to push back. So I did a flyer distribution campaign in early June of 2023. Plus, I encouraged people to sign up to speak at the upcoming town council meeting, which was happening about a week later. Plus, I did a rally outside of town council chambers that day when we had representatives inside presenting. There were so many people at that event that we filled council chambers. It was right full up. There was a crowd in the hallway and a crowd outside in the parking lot. And so that was quite a day, June 12th last year. Plus, I did another rally outside Town Hall, which is a different building than Town Council Chambers. Someone else had organized an online petition, but it was on change.org, and that petition disappeared. And so I ended up organizing a petition at the last moment. And at that time, I didn't know all the rules of municipal petitions, but I got one together in June, and then I submitted it late June. And although that petition wasn't binding and it didn't have enough signatures, it created a momentum because that petition was mentioned in the local newspaper. We're a town of less than 5,000 people. So all of that created a momentum and awareness. Oh, the town is looking at painting a symbol that doesn't resonate with all the residents. And there's people pushing back against it. And so we raised a lot of awareness in June of 2023. And then what was super after that is this team came together known as the neutrality team. And what they did is they researched and found out all the rules of municipal petitions. So if you actually want to do a municipal petition in Alberta and have it binding, I now know the rules of that. It's got to be written in a certain manner. There's a certain way you collect information and signatures, rules of submission, time limit, etc. So their team went door to door and did that petition in August and September of last year. And they only needed 10% of the population to sign it. So I think what the requirement was 492 signatures. And it turns out they got over 700 signatures in 45 days. Wow. So they submitted the petition in late September. The CAO of the town verified it in late October. Then what was interesting is the mayor resigned on November 10th. One of the councillors resigned in order to run for mayor in a by-election. And then on November 27th, they did first reading on a bylaw on neutrality. So in other words, the petition was written in such a manner and all the rules were followed so that first reading of a bylaw on neutrality had to be done November 27th by 5 councillors. Now, those 5 councillors did not want to do second reading or third reading, so they put the matter to plebiscite, and a whole bunch of us worked, in a sense, from behind the scenes on different endeavors to encourage people to get out and vote at that plebiscite. So on Thursday, February 22nd, we won by 24 votes, and a bylaw on neutrality was passed. So it was a success. It was quite a successful endeavor, and it took a lot of work and a lot of teammates to make that happen.
That's amazing. You said the way you keep positive is you always look for things to celebrate. Find something to celebrate. And I think that's absolutely true, right? You have a small win. I don't think that's a small win. I think that's a big victory. But you take any small win and you just celebrate that, you praise that, and then you build on that momentum for bigger and bigger wins. So that's really great. I love hearing that story. You mentioned a couple of terms in there. I just want to clarify. As I was looking into this topic, I encountered that term plebiscite many times. Can you explain what a plebiscite is, what that means?
A plebiscite. So what happened with the petition was written in such a manner that it says we want a bylaw on neutrality, and it was written exactly right with very specific wording. And the town, because there were so many petition signatures, the petition then becomes binding. And so that means the town has to take action on it. And so at the council meeting on Monday, November 27th of 2023, they had to do first reading on a bylaw on neutrality. Now, what they could have chosen to do was do second reading and third reading. But those 5 councillors, none of those 5 councillors that were at that meeting on November 27th, none of them shared the values of the petition. So they didn't want to do second and third reading. So they put the matter to plebiscite. And so what a plebiscite means is it means the people get to vote. So all the eligible voters of the town get to vote. Now, in between first reading and the plebiscite, there was some other interesting things that happened. There was a by-election. So it was officially opened in December, and I decided to run for council. Initially, I was going to run for mayor because I learned nobody was challenging the councillor that was running for mayor. And then I found out that someone who shares my values was running for mayor. So I thought, okay, he can run for mayor. And I managed to change my paperwork in time, and I ran for councillor. So I had a wonderful campaign, and big thanks to all the people. Some people came from over an hour away to come and help me door knock, and it was cold. And we door knocked in December and January. Now, I didn't win my seat as a councillor, but I did come in second out of 5. And I still have my campaign signage, and I have plans to run again as councillor in October of 2025. So we can't be discouraged. Like some people, they think, oh, well, I'm going to run for office, or I'm going to push for this. And some people get discouraged when it doesn't quite go the way you hope it would. But when I talk about celebrating the small wins, even my campaign, for example, I learned so much about just some of the campaign rules, successful campaign guidelines. I was partially successful. I helped raise awareness to important issues. I found out I actually had some helpers come from far away that I didn't expect would come. So I had some really pleasant surprises to find out the support. I had some wonderful financial donations. One fellow basically paid for all my signs. And so what we got to do is we got to focus on the outcome we want, and we got to take the steps to get there and use positive energy to draw in the people and the resources that we need. So once you identify the outcome and you identify the steps, and then you share that with your network, it's all going to come together. And try to kick that negative thinking out of there. Think positive. We can make the change. So even though I didn't make it to council and my preferred candidate didn't make it as mayor, I am not discouraged at all. The plebiscite was a success on February 22nd. We now have a bylaw on neutrality. There can be no themed crosswalks in the town of Westlock. And when it comes to our municipal flagpoles, the only flags that are allowed to fly are the Canadian flag, the Albertan flag, and the municipality flag. So we've drawn a line regarding boundaries, and we've had this success in our community. And whatever one of your concerns is in your community, maybe it's the same concern as mine, but maybe it's something else that's more important to you. You can still use what we've learned about rallies and protests and letter writing, letters to the editor, presentations at town council, petitions. You can still learn from us and apply those strategies to make the change in your community.
When you were running for your campaign for council, how valuable to you was that outside support?
Very valuable, because this is a small community of less than 5,000 people, and the local folks here that I was hoping could help me with the campaign, they weren't all available, in part because it was Christmas and it's cold and everybody has commitments. So I was so happy that people came from outside the community to help with my campaign, and they came and they door knocked for me, and they had to wear ski pants and mittens, but they still did it. So I'm really grateful. And mostly it was flyer distribution is most of what it was, but there was some door knocking, some interaction. And when we found a supporter, we worked to get their information. Some of these people wanted to put my sign on their lawns, and so that was just super. Plus, of course, we put up a bunch of signs near the main roadways. So there was a really great momentum, and I'm so grateful for the helpers from outside the community. And that's one of the things we need to do going forward is when you're thinking about making the change in your community, don't just like limit yourself to the resources and people and ideas from that community. It's necessary to reach outside and draw in resources from outside.
You know, the left side of the, and this episode called Waking Up to the Woke, right? The left side of this argument, or this issue, we'll call it, they are really great at organizing. And one of the things I learned actually going through close protection training, there was a specialist on activist threat. We were dealing with animal activists, Animal Liberation Front and PETA and stuff like that. And one of the things that he was saying is that these activist groups, they pool resources. They actually share protesters. So like one Saturday, you'll have a Black Lives Matter protest. And then the next Saturday, there'll be a PETA protest. And then there'll be like a Extinction Rebellion protest the next week. And it's like the same faces because they pool, they kind of do, they all help each other out. And the same where you'll have in the unions, you'll have like teachers protests on behalf of nurses and then vice versa. And they share that, and they draw from the outside, right? So you're right. You can't just limit if you're running in Westlock or you have an issue in Westlock, maybe it's only residents of Westlock that can actually have a vote or a say when it comes down to brass tacks. But like you said, someone paid for your signs, other people helped you door knock, and we really need to kind of pull together in our outside communities to do that. So I really like that you draw attention to that.
Yes, and like from the perspective of being that outsider coming to help with an initiative. So for example, in Calgary, a very enthusiastic group was working on a recall campaign. Well, one of their best volunteers collecting signatures for that didn't even live in Calgary. They came from outside, they believed in the movement and came and supported it because this individual had time to go around and collect signatures. And so even for example, right now, there's a movement in Sturgeon County. Sturgeon County Council has approved a development on the south side of Sturgeon County, which basically touches Edmonton and St. Albert. And this development is very concerning. Part of the development is going to take farmland and transform that farmland into high density housing. And so there's people who live in Sturgeon County, they move there because they like the rural lifestyle. They like the scenery, they like the peace and quiet, they like no crime. And suddenly this area, which is farm yards and acreages, is going to be transformed into an urban, densely populated area. So there's a group called SaveSturgeonCounty.com, and they're organizing pushback, and I'm helping them. So it's not
Awesome.
my municipality, but it's on my heart to go help them with their momentum. Because for all we know, at a later date, maybe Westlock or Westlock County, where I own some land, is going to have issues like that, and maybe those folks from Sturgeon County will come help me too. So we need to get out there and help the individuals and groups that are doing good work, no matter where they're located.
It feels like a lot of these issues, whether it be this one in Sturgeon County with the high density housing taking over farmland. I've heard, I just heard someone say that in Cochrane, Ontario, the mayor of the town, mayor and council, basically annexed some farmland as well to do the exact same thing. So this is happening everywhere, not just in Alberta, across Canada, and probably elsewhere. And it feels like it really does feel like a domino effect, that if that first domino falls, the rest are going to fall. And if you can stop that first one from falling, you can prevent that chain reaction. So yeah, I do really think it's super important to get on these and to go, you think, oh, that's Sturgeon County, that has nothing to do with me, way up here or way down here, or that's another province or whatnot. But it's coming to you as well, right? It's just, it might not be there first.
Well, there's definitely a push towards reducing the resources that are in rural areas. So for example, there's a push to close schools in hamlets. There's a push to reduce resources and try to encourage people to live in the cities. And I disagree with that push. I think we need to be supporting these rural areas. In fact, in some cases, more people should move to the rural area and support it. It's a great lifestyle living in these smaller towns. It might not have every aspect that a city has, but it still has a lot of wonderful things. And I feel like we somewhere there, I don't know if we need a protect the farmland bill or what we need, but we need something in this province that recognizes that if we allow densification and urbanization to just grow, well, at some point we now can't grow grain and we can't have cows, right? There's going to come a time where we can't. Like Alberta, we are so blessed here. We have so much wonderful farmland that we don't just have enough to produce for ourselves. We get to produce for others as well. We have great exports. Let's keep that. If we have too much urban growth, we're going to lose that. And we need that. I mean, to me, I think food is one of the most precious resources. Don't you, TJ?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we got into growing our, we came from Toronto basically, where everything was bought from Costco or the grocery store, up to here where we're now able to, like, next on Saturday we're going to be going to till the garden and put what we can in there. We're dealing up here with water restrictions right now because of the fire season. So actually we just ordered some rain barrels. So hopefully we can kind of get those full and help mitigate that. But I would absolutely encourage people, like you said, to move out to the rural areas, to support the rural areas, because it's absolutely beautiful, especially here in Alberta. No, not knocking the other provinces, but we do live in the best province, in my opinion, and the most beautiful province, also in my opinion. Cities like Edmonton, Calgary, maybe even Grand Prairie, Lethbridge, I'm not really too familiar with, but I'm sure they have larger councils and they may have a larger turnout of candidates and a larger turnout of voters. But just out of curiosity, in that by-election or in the election that you had for Westlock, how many voters turned out to vote for councillors, mayor, etc.?
I believe it was between 1,200 and 1,400. And Whoa. So that was an okay turnout for a by-election. Actually, in a sense, I think that was high. I think previous by-elections had less of a turnout, but I had done everything I could to raise a fuss in December with my signs and with my brochures. So my brochures didn't just say, hey, vote Benita. My brochures helped to raise awareness that on November 27th, our town council signed us on to something called the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities.
Familiar with that.
Yeah, they did this at the November 27th meeting immediately after doing first reading on the bylaw on neutrality and immediately after scheduling the plebiscite. The next item on the agenda was resolution to join the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. So what I did is I exposed this in my campaign paperwork in December and January as I'm going door to door, because I want more people to realize that the current town council has just signed us on, in a sense, with the United Nations. Like, this municipality has agreed to take guidance on policy from the United Nations. And there's so many people, they don't pay attention to what's going on at the town council meetings. They're not reading the minutes. They're not reading the agendas. They're not reading the agenda packages, which sometimes are 400 pages.
Yeah.
There's not enough people engaged. And so I like to think that my campaign helped to get people engaged, whether they like me or whether they don't. They came out to vote. So that's good.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're right. Not a lot of people do pay attention, and I found it like actually surprising when you said 1,400 or 1,200. You said 1,400 came out to vote, right? Was that about right?
Yeah, it was between 1,200 and 1,400. Right. Yeah, that's actually quite a lot.
Yeah, because in especially in a by-election, I suspect that probably because of the heat that was generated because of the issue at hand in terms of the crosswalks, that there's probably a lot of a call to action on the other side of things to kind of vote against you and to vote down the policies, and then conversely, people on our side of things were like, okay, well, if they're gonna, we got to go because we got to defeat this, and there was a buzz generated, and probably there was a large turnout. We had an open town hall actually in our town just on some Monday night, or just like a couple days ago, and they said it was the largest turnout they'd had in 8 years. And but it was because there's some hot topics on the docket, right? But I've been to some town council meetings where there's only 3 or 4 people sitting there, and we had a local business owner. He's also intertwined with the Pride Society and kind of the Gray Straight Alliance, all these things, and they were trying to push, and they presented to council to bring forth our town to come into line with to sign on to the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. And so I did some digging on the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities. I sent my email in. I showed up at the town council meetings while they were talking about this issue. And really, it's not hard it's inconvenient. It's boring, yes. But really, we have a town of less than 2,000 people. So we'll call it 1,900. And we have 4 or 5 people showing up to these council meetings. It's kind of crazy. And that people don't vote in these elections, these by-elections particularly. And there was one of the councillors had been acclaimed, one of the good ones actually, had been acclaimed as councillor, and the other side was complaining, oh, well, no one voted for you. You didn't even get 1 vote. How are you a councillor? She's like, well, I was acclaimed. And that means that nobody ran against her. So nobody's running in these elections. Nobody wants to do the dirty work, and nobody wants to come out and vote. But then they want to get their panties in a bunch when things don't go their way. So you're absolutely right. People do need to be engaged. And if they want something to happen, the future belongs to those that show up for it, right?
That's right. And voting alone is not enough. Like we have to do so much more. We need to, sometimes some of us need to step up and run for office. If you're not running for office, help with at least 1 campaign. October 20th of 2025 is not that far off. And there are things we can do now, even if you don't have all your candidates figured out, there's things we can do now to help to have a positive outcome on every school board and on every municipal council. And one of those items is join 1 or more organizations in your community. So at least 1 organization, which is sort of a board, like the Municipal Planning Commission or the Library Board, and then join a club of some sort, something you would enjoy. It could be sewing, it could be basketball. But join a club where you're going to meet people who maybe don't yet share your values. Build relationships in those groups over the next year. And then as we get close to that October 20th, 2025 election, now you've got a whole new circle of people you might be able to influence to vote for your candidate. Or if you're the one running for office, maybe they've come to like you and trust you, they vote for you. So we all need to be joining more groups now, not just our little freedom groups. We really need to get out of that and join these other groups and integrate more. I call it Operation Integration.
Yeah, everything, I've said this 100,000 times, and I'll never stop saying it because it's just true, that everything rises and falls on relationship, and not relationship through social media or through internet or through whatever. It's like person to person, having a coffee with a person, like you said, going to that sewing class or whatever, playing pickleball is a big one, like whatever. Build relationships with people, and that's what's going to actually have the actual change. I absolutely like that. I love that suggestion. I like the name Operation Integration for sure.
Yeah, relationships are key. It's funny you mentioned pickleball because just the other day I went to the Westlock Rotary Spirit Center where they have pickleball courts, so I was checking that out. But my main reason for being there was they were having a community engagement session and they were talking about the municipal development plan for the next 20 years. So they had all these posters on display with all of these ideas. And I took that opportunity to express concerns. So the first way they allowed us to express our concerns was they gave us a little sticky note and a Sharpie, and we could write on the note and then stick the note on the board. So I did that. So I was there for a good hour reading this stuff and writing my responses. Then I did a Facebook Live for 35 minutes talking about it. And then I spent about 45 minutes with one of the reps there, and we went through every board and I presented to her my concerns. Because to me, it wasn't just enough that I write it on the board. What if that sticky note falls off or someone takes it off? Well, then they haven't heard my concern. So I made a point of talking to her and I took up a lot of her time, but she allowed it. And then the mayor showed up at the event. Some of the counselors showed up at the event and I could see they were walking around the boards and they had seen what I had written. And so I didn't get to talk to all of them, but they at least saw what I wrote. And so there's these opportunities for community engagement to engage with administration and elected reps, and we need to grab them, but do it not in a unpleasant way. Do it in a professional way, yet be persistent.
Operation Squeaky Wheel, we'll call that.
Sure, Operation Squeaky Wheel. Yeah. Oh, but I have to note about relationships. Can I share this with you, TJ?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I have partnered with MP Arnold Pedersen on this. So he's his main office is in Barhead, but of course he has an Ottawa office.
He's actually my MP.
Oh, he's your MP too. Oh, yeah. He's... Okay, so I actually met Arnold many years ago. I've helped with more than one of his campaigns. And in one case, actually, we were having a Christmas parade here in Westlock. And I arranged the car for him so he and his family could sit in the car and be a part of the parade and wave at people. And it's just one of those feel good things. So the point is I've actually been nurturing a relationship with my MP for years and years. I knew him even before he won office. I helped him with his first campaign as MP. So that is one of the ways to establish and nurture relationships. Help with a campaign. The person you're helping very well may be elected, especially if they're part of the Conservative Party of the area that has the most momentum. So obviously, federally, the Conservative Party of Canada has the most momentum. Provincially, in Alberta, it's the United Conservative Party. In other provinces, so BC, for example, has the Conservative Party of British Columbia. That's the Conservative Party with the most momentum. So join that party and help. And so what happened is, because Arnold and I have a fairly good relationship and he's come to trust me, I get along with his family, he has actually come to some of my freedom events and delivered speeches. And when I advertised at one particular event that I had an MP coming to deliver a speech, and the theme of that event, by the way, was Trudeau Must Go, I had CTV News contacting me, Edmonton Journal, and others, because that was notable that an MP is coming to speak at one of these rallies. And so Arnold came, he delivered a speech. It was not ideal weather that day. I really appreciate that he took all that effort and did that. And then there was a petition called #Trudeau Must Go. So this came out quite some time ago, collected a bunch of signatures, got a bunch of momentum. Well, now there's a petition, cancel the carbon tax. And so I reached out to Arnold in late March and I said, I've written this petition. What do you think? He said, yes. And so he's officially endorsed it. And so this petition is now at the Axe the Tax protest, at most of the protests across Canada. And it's in other places as well. There's people going door to door with it, collecting signatures at their workplaces. So this is one of the ways you can get engaged. And this is a federal issue, so anybody in Canada can sign it. But technically, if you're looking to even just connect with people in your own municipality, you could be going door to door with this and finding people that have your values. And for all of you, you make super connections. And then later on, when you're running for office or the person you trust is running for office, if you've made a whole bunch of new friends because you brought a petition to their door that resonated with them, well, look at that. Maybe you can build a campaign team out of that group of friends that you just made because you're helping to get people politically engaged. Petitions is one of our tools, and we need to be using these more often.
Are you a coffee drinker, Benita?
I only had 3 today.
I was going to say, where do you get all your energy?
I get lots of sleep, and I have a lot of sugar.
As you do. You sent me some screenshots of files. I wasn't able to put them right into the platform, so I'm going to do a screen share. It'll take us to my file folder, and I'd love just to walk through some of these, and we could kind of rehash the experience it was when you were putting together the campaign on neutrality in terms of flags and crosswalks, if you don't mind.
Yes, let's go over some of that.
All right, they're not in any particular order here, but here is a. Can you see that?
I can see a list, and so
I'll read it here. It says from Doug. It says that looks like it's a screenshot of a Twitter post. Douglas W. Judson. Our firm will be covering the cost to ship all of Borderland Pride's remaining Pride Lives Here campaign signs to Westlock, Alberta. We went through this hateful small town bullshit here in 2020. We will do what we can to support other small places in need. So yes, the other side of this, of all the issues, will come out in droves. And this is the one thing, Benita, that I noticed that the left really has down to a science, where the right is really, it's hard to organize us. They're very organized and they support each other. That I'll say that for sure, that we definitely did take a page from their book there.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, the pushback, right? Because the people who are opposed to branded crosswalks, these are not hateful people. These are loving people. I've worked with these people, and this is not about hate. And so the people who have an opposing view attempt to portray it as this is about hate. And it's interesting that they try again and again and again to pretend people like me are hateful, and they attempt to smear us. And it disappoints me that there are actually, gullible people that fall for that instead of using their critical thinking skills, right? So for example, there's people, I'm over in my 40s, and there's people, they've known me for years and years and years, and they know I'm not a hateful person. They just know that I'm taking a stand on something. And so here's here's an example. So this fellow, so the problem is they've attempted to portray this as a hateful thing. And so what he's trying to do is show the group here that do identify with the Pride movement that, hey, we support you, right? And I'm not necessarily opposed to that. The only aspect of this I'm opposed to is that he's attempting to portray people like me as hateful. So if he would have just written the post differently, I wouldn't have had a concern about it. If people on their individual vehicles want to put their views, well, you go right ahead, right? I do it. I've got great stickers on my vehicle that present my views. But those views don't belong on a crosswalk. They don't belong on municipal flagpoles. We need to just have some boundaries here. And so the people who are standing up for boundaries, these are loving people, not hateful people. And so I'm very hopeful that there will come a time that this attempt to label people as hateful comes to an end. The anti-hate network in Canada, for example, there's just so much that they're like labeling as, oh, that must be hate. It must be hate. It must be hate. They're attempting to label it as hate when really it's just someone expressing a viewpoint that's different than yours. How is that hate? That's not hate. So I'm really looking forward to the day we can have these conversations. Like this fellow Douglas, I would totally invite him onto a show one day and have a conversation. Last year, by the way, TJ, this is something I forgot to mention. One of the ways of creating awareness for that crosswalk campaign was I hosted events. And on the event, it said, should Westlock get a rainbow crosswalk? Yes or no? And I had people come on my show and express yes and why, and express no and why. And one of those representatives was a fellow by the name of Will, and he's with an Alberta LGBTQ group. And what he does is he helped offer support to individuals who identify as LGBTQ who need support. Okay, so let's say they're being bullied, or maybe they're losing their home, whatever the deal is. So he came on the show and he talked about why there should be a rainbow crosswalk in Westlock. I mean, he doesn't even live here in Westlock, but he talked about why, because it makes these people feel supported. And so I allowed him to share his views and share his whys. And then he listened some to my views. By the end of it, he hadn't persuaded me and I hadn't persuaded him, but we at least had a discussion and we slightly better understood one another. And so that's what needs to happen here is more discussion. And like, so take, for example, when Daniel Smith presented on January 31st, her views, not her views, really, it's the UCP members' views, because part of that speech, I believe she gave on January 31st was motivated by what the United Conservative Party members passed at the AGM back in November. So she gives this speech January 31st, and I love that speech so much. It's on my Rumble channel, DJ Benita. And in that speech, she speaks, in a sense, to the transgender people of Alberta. And she says, I care about you. I accept you as you are. Well, I made a sign, TJ. My version of protest sometimes changes. But the sign on one side says, I accept you as you are. And on the other side, it says, I care about you. There was an LGBTQ protest on Sunday, February 4th. So there's these Indigenous people and lots of people wearing rainbows, and they had an event. And I walked in holding that sign, and in a sense, I'm counter-protesting them. But my sign reads, I care about you, and I accept you as you are. So I asked people, what do you think of my sign? And they said, oh, I like your sign. And my response was, did you know the Premier of Alberta said that to the transgender community of Alberta last Wednesday? And some of these people were shocked. And as soon as, of course, I mentioned the Premier, some of them were very upset because they've made a lot of assumptions about the Premier. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to when we can bridge to understanding, because there's a lot of misunderstandings going on, and there's people that are like pushing and perpetuating the misunderstandings. And we just need to bring people to the table, have discussions, get the truth out. That's what needs to happen.
I think I probably differ from you a little bit on this issue, in that I think it's the inclusivity aspect of it, I think, is a bit of a poison pill, because I think the underlying ideology, like the people on the front lines, like the people on the street, the ones with the going through this or whatever, they don't, for them it might be about inclusion, it might be about feeling loved and cared for, but I think there's more. There's obviously like a deeper issue going on. And I in terms of neo-Marxism and communism and the breaking down of boundaries, destruction of the nuclear family and such. So I wouldn't be as probably positive as you are. And so we do need people like you, because people like me will not be well received by the other side, for sure.
Well, you know what? At that LGBTQ protest on February 4th, there was a communist table set up. And I was just shocked. Because here they're apparently protesting the Premier and her comments. Most of them didn't even know what she said. They're just blindly listening to what their leaders are telling them. So since the leaders smear the Premier, all these other people think the Premier must be bad. And I'm kind of like, take a step back, actually listen to the speech, So they had a communist table set up there. And I was in so much shock when I saw it. I had to go take a look at it, because to me, it's like, hey, how does this all correlate? And obviously there are connections here. A lot of people aren't aware of why it would connect. TJ, I'm sure you understand the connections, but we need to help make more people aware.
For anybody that does want to kind of explore that question and explore that information, I would just direct them to the New Discourses podcast on Spotify. You can find it from James Lindsay, Dr. James Lindsay. If you go to my Rumble channel, there's a couple of presentations. One he did in Calgary when he was in Alberta last October, and one from Edmonton as well. And he kind of really details that. I am not good at holding on to details in my brain. I do try really hard, but he gives a really, really good kind of layout of that. Just a massive blueprint that he really lays out there over the course of those. And if you want it to digest it in smaller bits, you could check out, again, the New Discourses podcast. He does 10 or 15-minute episodes where he kind of covers one little bullet point or one aspect of we'll call it the woke apparatus or the woke strategy, and really a lot of historical context as well. So I've really appreciated listening to that and getting a real steep education for sure. Okay, so here, vote no on February 22nd. No, vote for an inclusive Westlock. So this looks like this is probably a fundraiser on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah, so we had this amazing neutrality team come together last year. So July, they did a whole bunch of prep work, wrote the petition, they went to town council, one of their reps presented to town council, let them know that the petition was happening. Partway through petition collection of signatures, they gave town council an update. They let them know how many signatures they were at. So it's very, very polite. So the point is we had this wonderful group, and you know, they're called the neutrality team, and they had a website, everything. It's just super what happened. So then what happened is when we got closer to the website, this other group started as saying vote for an inclusive Westlock, and they're saying vote no. In other words, vote against a bylaw on neutrality. And so they organized, they did fundraising. The recently elected mayor of the town had donated $500 to this campaign. The recently elected mayor also did a number of videos telling everybody to vote no. So I actually wrote to Alberta's Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rick McIver, and I expressed concerns about this campaign and how the mayor is endorsing this. And in my view, the mayor should be neutral. He shouldn't be attempting to influence the vote. Like if you think about when you chair a meeting, okay, doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on. If you are chairman, you are to play neutral until, unless a tiebreaker vote is needed. Then you put your own views in. But if you're chairman of a meeting, this side gets to say their piece, the other side gets to say their piece. There's discussion back and forth. You run an organized meeting, so there's no arguing, and you play neutral. So the mayor failed to play neutral on this plebiscite. And I wrote Rick McIver, and I didn't get a response till after the plebiscite had wrapped up. I wasn't happy with my response from Rick McIver, but yeah, so I just wanted to show that to you, that even though we were receiving, you know, all this pushback for the bylaw on neutrality, we still passed it February 22nd. So
amazing. Yeah. Back to that town meeting we had a couple of days ago. And it may have even been last week. I can't even remember now. It's probably was. Anyways, my point is, there was a lot of, a lot of chatter from the peanut gallery, we'll say, from the town that was there, saying, accusing the councillors of, you're just doing this because of your political affiliations. And the councillor, the one that they were arguing about, they really don't like her, that was acclaimed. She said, do you want us to take political positions? Like, we will if you want us to, but we don't do that as a rule, because that's not their job as the town council. And but people really do seem to think that they do take those political positions, and they're supposed to, like you said, they're supposed to stay neutral. They're supposed to represent the townspeople, and this is a perfect example of that not happening. So yeah, there's got to be some sort of ethical violation here for a mayor of a town to be doing this to side, especially on such a hot button issue.
Well, it is. It's a hot button issue in this community. So then they posted the results, and so here's their response. We understand many people are disappointed with the results of the plebiscite. We want to assure you that council worked diligently to explore every legal avenue to challenge the petition and its resulting bylaw. So I just find that interesting that basically council's saying we want to disrespect the will of the people. We're trying to challenge it. So please know the information being shared via social media only represents a fraction of the process that led up to the vote. Despite the outcome, our organization remains committed to serving the community in all its day-to-day duties and tasks. We know that Westlock is a divided community, but we remain dedicated to fostering and welcoming an inclusive environment for everyone. So it's so interesting sometimes how they play with words, especially this word inclusivity and, divided versus united. Like if we backtrack to say June of 2023, I was accused of being someone who divides the community because I'm expressing an opposing viewpoint to what council's putting through. So I just found that very interesting that, all I'm doing is opposing this resolution and you're calling me divisive. But in a free and democratic democracy, like in a free and democratic society, we are supposed to be able to say, hey, I oppose that viewpoint, right? And as it turned out, I obviously wasn't the only one opposing the viewpoint. There were lots. We filled council chambers. We filled the hallway. We had a rally outside. The petition in the end showed, and so is the plebiscite. So so to say people like me are guilty of dividing the community, that's not true. It's actually town council that divided the community because they wanted to put a crosswalk in that favors a certain group. In other words, this group gets to have their symbol in town bigger than any other symbol of any other group in town. And allegedly that's for inclusivity, but really it appears to make that group a priority. So that's not equal at all, because
No.
putting the symbol of a group in a sense a prominent way, that's a group I don't associate with. So what is that saying to the people who don't associate with that symbol? So that's not inclusivity. So do you see? And it's so interesting how their arguments are. You know, they say, oh, you're the one dividing the community and you're not being inclusive. And I'm like, no, you're the one dividing the community. You're not being inclusive because you're trying to put on it. You're trying to impose a symbol on me that doesn't resonate with me. And all I'm doing is pushing back. So whoever works on this website here, I sure hope they've changed that staff member and the attitude is changing. I actually went to an event here in Westlock to talk about the municipal development plan yesterday, and I interacted with some of the administration. They were polite enough to me, even though they know I have opposing views. And it was interesting interactions, and I intend to follow up. And I'm just very hopeful that since now the plebiscite is behind us, and I feel like I'm hopeful they have a better sense of the views of this community, so they're going to listen. And so here's an example of a success story, TJ. There is this green space in town. It's not a proper park. It's just grass and some trees and maybe a bench. And it's in an area of town that has flooded in the past. Like we're talking people's basements were destroyed. So the town of Westlock was about to approve, well, let's develop this green space and put up an apartment building there. Well, the neighbors who had their basements flood, they flooded town council. Like the engagement on this issue was amazing. They flooded town council at least one meeting, and they presented and said, we do not want an apartment building here. Grass and trees and the roots of trees act as sponges, and they collect water, and they help prevent flooding. If you put an apartment building here, it's going to increase the risk of flooding for us. And so they pushed back on council and said, don't do that development. And guess what? It was a success. Council backed down and said, okay, we won't put an apartment building here.
Good.
So I know that's a small victory, but we need to celebrate it. And so the
celebrate the small victories. Yeah.
Get engaged. Yeah. Take action.
Now, I know you're being very respectful and being very kind and being very fair. So I'll go to the effort of just saying it myself. Town of Westlock Mayor and Council, you suck. And I hope that the next election you get your hopes and dreams crushed and you get replaced. So that's just my take.
TJ, you're making me laugh. So I'm going to just grab something here. Give me 2 seconds.
Sure. Vote Benita Pedersen for councillor. That's right. That's some high gloss, man.
Yeah, it is pretty high gloss. So I'm gonna run again. So I've got, you know, I still got obviously the same number, same email, and the website. I've got that, and all I gotta change on this sign is the date of the election. Nice. So I'll
just a sticker. Yeah, you'll be good. Okay. So what are we looking at here?
Oh, here's the actual plebiscite results, I think. Can we zoom in?
Oh, this is the notice of the vote. So this is, I guess, when they're telling them when the vote's going to be. And we have the result. Where is it? Here's the result here.
Yes. Yeah, so 663 to 639. We won by 24 votes. So that was over 1,200 people, over 1,300 people, almost 1,300 voted. That is such a good turnout. Like there are so many municipalities that you have a plebiscite or you have a by-election, your turnout is low.
Yeah.
In this case, we had good engagement, and I am so happy for the results of this plebiscite.
This is about the same amount of people then that voted for the new mayor and councillors, right, in that by-election. Seems to be check out like same amount of numbers roughly.
Yep, about 1,200. Yep.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, here's Tanner's vote. Just saying it is by a narrow margin, but hey, a win is a win.
It was neat how after that plebiscite, different medias picked it up. So Tanner Naday, in a sense, has the media, and there's all these other medias, and they picked it up. And it's interesting how the different medias put a spin on it. So I liked Tanner's spin. Obviously, some of the other medias that pick it up, they put that negative spin on it, and they attempt to portray us as hateful or something. And it's not. We're just about healthy boundaries. And we actually, in Westlock, one of our counselors at one of the meetings was talking about how there's some housing concerns here and there's not enough rental property. I was chatting with a apartment building manager, and he was saying, yeah, all the apartments are full, and sometimes I'm getting 30 calls a day because people want to rent a unit. There's not enough housing here. And I think one of the reasons people want to move to Westlock is the result of that plebiscite, because there's people who probably assume we are not a woke town and that we are awake. What I'd like for them to realize, though, is the current council is woke, and it's a very slow process to draw them over. Like, we had to force them with a plebiscite to put through a bylaw on neutrality, because there's no way they would have put through that bylaw on their own. And so we really need to transform this council October 20th, 2025.
I won't out this person because I have a great love and respect for this person. But it was in a private message where they told me, and disappointed in some of the things going on, they said, maybe we should take a pause in fighting this fight and just kind of let the chips fall as they may, and let the unaware masses or the low information people kind of experience experience what we've experienced, so that they'll finally wake up. And I'm like, well, I get it. Like, I can get the frustration because it's a big fight at times, but like you said, the work is not done, and not just Westlock Council, but everywhere, virtually everywhere. If you cede any ground, anytime, they'll take that ground, and that's a fight you're going to have to gain back later again. You can't stop. You can't take your foot off the gas. Absolutely not. And you're absolutely right. You have to keep fighting, and it's exhausting. People around you don't appreciate it, but if not you, who's gonna? Like, who's gonna? Nobody's gonna.
Mm-hmm. No, I have to keep going. Like, I've had moments where I wish I could be done, right? And be like, oh, someone else has picked up the torch. Great. But I still see so much work to do. So I keep going. I live off my savings and I keep going. Couple things I'd like to share, TJ. One is just about that petition. I actually have an email address, cancelthecarbontax@gmail.com. So if anybody wants this petition, I can email this to you as a PDF, and you can print it off, collect signatures in your community. In a perfect world, I would actually get those papers from you in hard copy so I can put them on the MP's desk myself. But in an imperfect world, we'll figure out another way to get those hard copies to him. Another thing, TJ, is I'm using a tool to build teams and communities. So it isn't just Westlock that I want to help in 2025 in transforming the municipal council and the school board here. I'm also looking to help transform councils across Alberta, even across Canada. So I built a tool, and it's at www.tinyurl.com, and it's called Team Conservatized. And what that is it's an online form anybody can fill out. And you go there and you could say things like, hey, am I thinking of running for office? Will I help someone run for office? If I'm going to, it's tiny URL. You got to put the little Y in there.
Oh, my bad.
If I'm going to help a candidate I believe in win. So, and then on there, you can put some of your skills. Do you do web design? Do you do graphic design? Will you build signs? Will you distribute signs? Will you repair signs? Whatever. So you put your stuff on there, because there's so many things we need. So we don't just want names, phone number, email. We actually want your skills and resources on that list. And then that way we can build these teams. And so once I get 5 people in similar postal codes connected, I'll connect you to one another if you've given me permission to do so. You get to build that team in your area. So
awesome. That's great. That's a great tool. Yeah, you got to find your friends, absolutely, in any way you can. I was joking with a buddy of mine the other day, since they unleashed the beast, we'll call it, the new pride flag. It's so inclusive that everybody's included here, and so inclusive. But what I find funny about this is if they're going to demand that they have pride crosswalks, no, man, I'm going to demand that you have this there. You got to have, it's got to be like that NASCAR, the NASCAR with all the sponsors all over it. You got to have everybody. And I'm going to make sure you put everything on here so that everyone's going to have to stare at this eyesore that is now the progress. I don't know what you call this other than the Frankenstein monster. Seriously.
What are they claiming the circle means, and what are they claiming the umbrella means?
The circle means intersexed. So, and actually, I got to tell you a story. Actually, I talked about this the other day. I met an intersexed person once, like legitimately. 43 years old. I met one in my life. I was working at Rivoli Theatre in Toronto. I was working the front door, and this person comes up in this wheelchair, and everybody likes to talk to the bouncer. And I'm not really a chatty person when I'm on the door, but I was standing there alone, and he comes up, so I'm like, I'm having a friendly conversation with this person. And he tells me the story. And again, this is assuming everything they're telling me is true and factual. I have no knowledge of this person, so I couldn't tell you whether they were or not. They seemed very genuine. But he said that when he was 12 years old, and he's a boy, when he was 12 years old, he had some intense pain in his stomach. He didn't know what was going on. Like, it got really, really bad. He got really, really sick. So they took him to the hospital. And as it turns out, they found out then that he was intersex because he had a penis, he had testicles, everything. But on the inside, he had uterus, ovaries. He had both sets of genitalia. They're internal for the female, external for the male. And what had happened is he got his period, basically. And because there was no vagina, no canal, like there was nowhere for it to escape, so the blood just pooled there and was started to cause sepsis. And that's what was causing the sickness. So he had to have a hysterectomy at 12 years old. Still has everything externally intact, but has to be on had to go through surgery to not die. Has to be on medication to regulate hormones and everything for the rest of his life. And for whatever reason, the side effects, I guess, I don't know if it has to do with bone density or whatnot, but is now confined to a wheelchair. So, there are people out there that do have that condition. That's not a mental condition, like literally intersexed. But I've only met one person in my life. But that big fucking circle there is to represent the actual intersex. So there you go.
And
it's funny that
they're one of the population.
Yeah. It's funny with all the gender talk and everything. It's funny that they took till now to include people that actually suffer from that. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. And I mean, I can't imagine the discomfort that person, might feel, because I've heard sometimes after those surgeries, like you can actually have issues for life. I mean, you were saying he's still in a wheelchair due to bone density issues.
I don't know if it was bone density, but I'm assuming the reason you'd be in a wheelchair is because he stood up once, and so it's not like he can't walk, but I don't know if it takes a lot out of him or was bone density. I'm just assuming bone density because of hormones, like maybe a lack of estrogen or something. I really don't know. But yeah, so has to be on basically lifetime medication, and also is kind of deals with being sick all the time, and then also is in that wheelchair now. So I wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be honest.
Yeah, no, of course not. And thank you for defining that, because that's something I didn't understand before. I hadn't dug in and done the research. And I mean, I just really feel our society needs to be respectful of one another, no matter what a person's background is. I spent many years as a karaoke hostess, and on occasion, when it was not Halloween, I would get a man come to the karaoke show dressed as a woman. And I thought, and he signed up, I think his name was Rose or something on the karaoke slip. And so I hand him the mic, and I think he's going to use a falsetto voice to do some singing. But he didn't. He just used his regular male voice, and he sang the song. And so here we have this fellow. He's an obvious man attempting to be a woman, but he's not going all the way with the voice attempt. And I treated him courteously. I gave him suggestions on songs he could sing in his range. We meet people in our society from all backgrounds, all cultures. I think that the rule should just be, let's respect one another. We don't need this imposition of symbols. It's not necessary. If they choose to wear their symbols on their own personal body, that's their choice to make. But
fill your
there's
boots.
No reason we need to be making crosswalks into symbols. Furthermore, I don't think it's safe. I think crosswalks are safer if they are standardized black and white ladder problems black and white ladder patterns across the province. That's the way it should be. And I actually talked to Alberta's Minister of Transportation, and we had that conversation. And I said, what's your opinion if every crosswalk in Alberta was a black and white standardized ladder problem? And he seemed to like that suggestion. So whether that'll come to fruition and become in legislation, we'll see what happens. But it'd be so nice if not every municipality had to do the work we did in Westlock to get our crosswalk standardized here.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. You know, I'm actually colorblind, and so especially when it's raining and there's reflection on the road, like driving through Ontario on the 403 coming back from work, there'd be like the orange, like the bright orange construction zone road paint, and it would just completely disappear in the reflections on the road, and I couldn't see the lanes. The only thing that I can see is the bright white contrasted against the dark black in those conditions. So and even the yellow, like even the yellow lines sometimes disappear. So it's black and white all the way. Like I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, I'm with you. No, I'm totally with you. Like I do a bit of graphic design. I'm making these posters to promote events and initiatives. And black and white is the ultimate contrast. If you go black and red, sometimes the red blurs into the black. If you go white and yellow, sometimes they kind of blur together. If you wanted to see something from a distance and the clear contrast, black and white is the ultimate. And crosswalks should be black and white. And I'm not just talking this particular symbol because it doesn't resonate with me, but I think it was Edmonton or St. Albert. I saw white and yellow crosswalks. It goes white, yellow. I don't like that either. I don't know if that's supposed to symbolize something or if they're just being colorful, but I don't like it. It should be black and white for safety and consistency. Yeah. Especially when we have new drivers in Alberta and they receive their can you just imagine, pretend somebody came to Alberta and English is their second language and they're getting their Alberta driver's license. And imagine if you can have any crosswalk you want in the province in any design, how long they would have to make the driver's guide to include all the symbols. I'm like, can we just standardize it to black and white, please?
Consistency is key, man, for sure.
And then that's an equality right there. It's not favoritism. Yeah. Let's have actual equality. We don't need equity. We need equality.
You know, I'm with you on this, that like if someone wants to be gay, someone wants to be trans, like you do, fill your boots, do what you want to do. I'm all for personal autonomy, 100%. However, I think where a lot of people draw the line, or where I draw the line, is when it comes to children, right? So when they start to encroach on children, they try to slip things into children's programming on television or at school, or drag queen story time. That's when that's kind of the line that's starting to poke the bear or wake up the bear rather. And so that's the thing that we were saying before is, they want to destroy boundaries. And so we come in the guise of inclusivity. Oh, we just want to be included. But speaking of New Discourses podcast I mentioned before, this is what Dr. Lindsay was talking about, that we will demand accessibility. We demand access. So you give them access. Now we demand accommodation. You give them accommodation. Now we demand a seat at the table. You give them a seat at the table. Now they go for that power structure so that they can turn it on you. And this is their process. And so I fully agree. You can be who you want, love who you want, put your thing in whatever hole you want, but provided it's a consenting adult, human being at that. But I think when it comes to children, right, that's got to be the line where we draw. And, I have no problem drawing that line.
Well, the 1 Million March for Children protests that occurred September 20th across Canada, I was the host for Edmonton. And actually, TJ, I'm going to have to post a link at some point showing the aerial footage from that protest, because our crowd, I think it was between 2,000, 3,000 people. And so at that protest, it was very clear. One of our core messages was stop SOGI 123. Stop the sexual orientation, gender identity, education, indoctrination inside our schools. And there was a counter protest across the street right in front of the Alberta Teachers Association building. And so people there with their rainbows, etc., countering us, attempting to call us names. I think they use the word bigot, whatever. So they're calling us names. So we're just about healthy boundaries. Well, one of the things that was interesting about that protest was the amount of Muslims that showed up in Edmonton. A lot of Muslim mothers, you could tell by the way they were dressed, and they were shouting to the rainbow crowd across the street, "Leave our kids alone!" And there was just so much power in their united shouts, and I was just, wow, like, look at these mothers who I have, never seen at an event. I've been protesting since February 2021. I've never seen them before, but they came out for that protest because they feel it right here. They want to protect their kids. And then we had another follow-up protest in Edmonton, October 20th. Not as big of a turnout there, but still very good. In that case, we were right in Pride Central of Edmonton. We were on White Avenue at Pride Corner. And that's where we have the protest. And a counter protest showed up, and they were across the street from us. Edmonton Police Services in both cases did a great job of keeping the protesters separated so that there weren't any altercations. And they were terrific. And I always try to communicate with law enforcement in advance of an event to let them know what I'm up to and what my plans are so that they can do what they need to do to keep everyone safe. So we have that event. So then obviously the UCP AGM occurred, and we had so many members of the current governing party of Alberta step up and say, we are for parental rights. And then Danielle Smith on January 31st said, we are for parental rights. She reiterated that February 1st when she was interviewed by various reporters, and they were trying to put her on the spot about how, I remember one of the questions was, well, if a teacher has to send a note home to parents every time they're going to present on this issue, and it's a sensitive issue, that's a big hassle for the teacher. And Danielle Smith responded to the reporter and said, if a teacher is teaching about sex and gender ideology on multiple occasions, and they have to send home multiple notes to the parents, then something's wrong there, right? So I'm paraphrasing. So the point is she's standing up for us. And by the way, James Lindsay's coming back to Alberta in June. I don't know if you knew that.
Awesome. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love his very knowledgeable, especially on this topic for sure. You mentioned that million March for Children. When that happened, it was September 20th, I believe, right? Last year, 2023. Yeah. And I'm only an hour and a bit from Grand Prairie, so I took my camera, went up to Grand Prairie and documented that one. Now, there's well over 500 people there for the Million March for Children, and then there was like 30 or 40 for the counter protest, which was the No Space for Hate protest. It's more than a 10-to-1 ratio, and that seemed to be consistent across the board. And I take that as an encouragement. The minority is a loud, vocal minority, but there's more of us than there are of them. And that just take that as an encouragement. Don't let the peanut gallery kind of shout you down from the back. Get out there in whatever way you can, whatever kind of action you want to take, and make your voice heard and stand up for what's right. Just do it.
Yeah. We are the majority, but it only counts if we use it.
We have a request here from Rock Girl. Please post the link if you can. So if you want to send that to me in the private chat, and I'll get her up there.
You betcha. Yeah, you need to see that aerial footage. Do you have any aerial footage from Grand Prairie?
No, I was just there taking stills with the camera. You could go to my website. I'll see if I can pull that up here. Let's just take a look. Let's just go there and we'll take a look right now. Give me a moment, guys. Photography, photojournalism, Million March for Children Grand Prairie. Okay, here we go.
Oh, I gotta see this because I don't think I ever saw these. So please share.
Oh yeah, awesome. Okay, let me just get the share screen here. Where are we here? That one, this one. Here we go. Okay, boom. Can you see that?
Yep.
So these might be small in the little window there. But here I wrote, approximately 500 plus parents and children gathered to protest the sexualization of children in schools and society at large, while approximately 40 to 50 counter protesters gathered to wave their flags and gather support from passersby, which is, to sum it up, is basically what it was. So here up at the top, you have I don't know what to call them, the rainbow protesters, I guess. And a lot of signs. not necessarily as creative as the Freedom Rally signs that we saw during the mandates, but a lot of signs nonetheless. And yeah, so many, like you said, here you can see a lot of the Muslim, not a lot. There's been a few Muslim families up there. And in Grand Prairie, I don't know what the demographics are in terms of migrants, but or different faith groups. But we did have Muslims out there. We had Hutterites up there, Mennonites up there, a lot of just working moms and dads, and a lot of kids as well. And is there a good shot here of the crowd? Here you can kind of see. Let me see if I can zoom this in. Hold on a sec. How do I move you over? All right. This picture right here, you can kind of see in the field there. It's beside the 30 kilometers an hour photo force. So that was probably half the crowd. I couldn't get it all in frame because they were moving too fast for me. But yeah, it was really a really good turnout.
Can you zoom in on that one actually?
Which one?
That one you were just talking about, where you've got half the crowd. I
tried, but I can't see the scroll bar on how to get over to it because it goes out of frame. If anybody wants to hear, I'll just put the link up for anybody that wants to look at this themselves, and they can.
Okay, well, I'm sending you something through Facebook messaging. It's a link to the Rumble of Edmonton from September 20th last year. By the way, at that protest and the October 20th protest, I had two petitions going. One was a Trudeau must go petition, and the way I presented the petition was that Trudeau's one of the aggressive supporters of things like SOGI 123. So I said we have to get rid of him. But I also had an Alberta legislature petition stop SOGI 123. We've got quite a few signatures on that. And so I presented that petition to the chief of staff of the Minister of Education in mid-November. So I had a meeting with him for close to an hour, and there were a couple of other representatives there as well. I couldn't meet with the Minister of Education himself. It didn't pan out that way, but at least I met with the Minister of Staff, chief of staff, right? And anyway, that went well, and I feel that contributed towards the momentum too. And toward Daniel Smith making the remarks she did on January 31st. So did you find my Rumble link there?
Does that look right? Does that look right there?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Can you just play a sample from it?
Sure. Okay.
I think you guys are going to love this because somebody brought a drone and they got aerial footage.
Oh, not found.
Oh,
not
no.
Found. You know what? I'm just going to go to Facebook and click on the link. Hold on a sec there.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. We're doing a lot of running around here. Thanks for sticking with us.
Oh, and sometimes Rumble has an ad. It's such a pain.
That's okay. Okay,
yeah.
Here we go. I'll let it play past the... Oh, wow. Okay, here. Let me just... It's
going to look something like that.
Entire screen.
We were near the Space and Science Center because we deliberately chose the area across the street from the Alberta Teachers Association because they're one of the most aggressive pushers of SOGI 123.
Can you hear that?
Quietly, yeah. You can turn it up if you want. Yeah, there's our protest. So I have my petition stuff in those little blue tents right there. Our giant protest. We had so many people that we were spilling out into the street. We couldn't cram them all in our little green space. So that's us. So this is earlier in the day before we were at top numbers. That's my little Canada umbrella too.
There's the police there.
Police are there. They were trying to make us, stay in a certain area, and it worked to an extent. But what had happened is our crowd, in a sense, grew and spilled over, and we ended up taking up 3 corners of the intersection. And
amazing.
The other protest was only on one corner of the intersection because their group was so small. And so what happened is the police did not want any altercation. So when the other group, some of them were ready to leave, the police would not let them leave because the police wouldn't let them cross the street to get to their cars because they didn't want the groups mixing. And so I just find that kind of the groups across the street there's a giant progressive pride flag on the parkade next to Alberta Teachers Association. This truck here, I think, might have been the lead truck for our march, because we did a march as well as a rally. And actually, Pastor Rodney Fortin from Church in the Vine got some really, really good footage of this march as well. Like, just
look at how far this goes.
yeah.
Wow.
What an event. We were heard. The Alberta Teachers Association, so I had put a handout together talking about, hey, why should you be concerned about SOGI 123? Do you know what they're teaching you in school? And this 2,000 of these handouts were distributed at this event and then redistributed after. So some of those flyers made it over to some staff at the Alberta Teachers Association. And in the ATA newsletter the following week, they talked about my flyer. They didn't mention my name. I wrote the flyer. That's fine. They didn't mention my name, but they mentioned the flyer, and they attempted to present the information we were distributing as misinformation, but they didn't do a good job of it. So I look at that protest and I go, what a success, because not only were we noticed by the public driving by, we were noticed by staff of the ATA, like this. That was a successful event, and it was peaceful. I mean, maybe a couple people argued with each other at some point, but big deal. Yeah, it's a peaceful event.
Communists can't fight anyway. I wanted to touch on, not to pivot too hard, but we kind of touched a little bit at the beginning on the new Bill 20. That and I actually just saw another article about it today. But let's talk about the bill a little bit, and then we'll talk about the article I read. Let me just pull up on Twitter here. Is this?
Do you want to know one of the reasons I think they instigated Bill 20? Because I have a theory.
Why is that?
My theory is that when Edmonton last year, so City of Edmonton Council was, in a sense, getting in bed with the feds and saying, let's make an urban national park in Edmonton. And this was happening last year, and then it was passed. So in other words, the City of Edmonton wasn't even considering where the province might stand on this or where Albertans might stand on this. For some reason, they just thought, hey, it's a good idea to have an urban national park. Now, I'm opposed to more national parks because national parks restrict our ability to move about freely. And in some cases, they make us pay money to visit certain areas. And
unless you're a newcomer.
We don't need any more we don't need national parks, period. Never mind urban national parks. And so Edmonton made this deal with the feds. Now, last year, a petition got going, and it's against the development of an urban national park in Edmonton. And that petition got a lot of momentum, over 1,000 signatures, good momentum. Well, that petition eventually ended up in the hands of UCP MLA Brandon Lunty, and he's in the constituency of Beaumont-Leduc. So he presented that petition as a private member's bill in the legislature, and it gained momentum, and the other UCP MLAs supported it, and it passed as Bill 204 on April 15th. Now, I was actually in the legislature on April 8th, and they were doing a reading on the petition. There was some back and forth about the petition. It was very, very good. My favorite moment that day, though, was when the MLA from Lakeland stood up and said, "Axe the tax," and he was talking about the carbon tax. But that was just awesome. So I was in legislature April 8th, and then, of course, this Bill 204 passed on April 15th. So what I'm trying to get at is that whole thing is all about a municipality making a deal with the feds and basically leaving out the province. Municipalities, they fall under the province. They don't fall under the feds. The way municipalities are run, it falls under the province. The province is kind of like the parent in a way, right?
That's right.
The feds are a little further out there. So it's not appropriate for a municipality to bypass the province and make a deal with the feds. It's not right. And so I like various aspects of Bill 20 that we're going to me, it's kind of a reminder to municipalities that, guess what? Hey, your operations fall under the province, not the feds. Because apparently they need that reminder, especially City of Edmonton Council. So I like Bill 20, and I also love the idea of removing tabulators and electronic voting. Like, let's get that out of there. And that's not just like my personal view. This is the view of Albertans. Albertans have lost a lot of trust in the electoral system. There's just been a lot of weird stuff going on, and sometimes some weird outcomes to elections. Like, we are suspicious. So trust in the system is down. And to get that trust back, we have to go back to paper ballots. There can be no tabulators, no electronic voting. If it's important enough to have an election, well, then it's important enough to do this all by paper and all hand counted. Okay? None of these shortcuts.
Do you offhand know at each poll, at any particular, I'm sure it's different at each polling station based on population, etc. But at least in your area, do you know how many tabulators would be at one polling station?
I would assume at least one per polling station, or, well, actually it might be one per 4, possibly.
Let me find out.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't trust them. I just want to do away with them.
I was just talking on the phone with somebody from Red Deer earlier in the week, and when after Bill 20 came out, and he was saying that one of their people in their group went as scrutineers to the Red Deer stations, and he said that there was discrepancy in the tabulators, and I just want to get the numbers right. That's what I was asking, because I'm pretty sure he said each machine had or the one machine that they were in question had 10, it was off by 10 or was off by 150. So I wasn't sure if there's 15 tabulators and each was off by 10 or if one was off by 150. But the 150 was the number that was put out there. Now, imagine that's just Red Deer at one polling location. So, okay, so what if that happens all across the province? That's a whole election, right? And you could call it whatever you want, but I think we know what that is. Go ahead.
I used to be a cashier, okay? And yes, there are these machines that can count cash, right? You can throw a bunch of 20s in a machine and it can count it for you. But I come from a time where I had to count my float manually. We didn't have one of those machines. We counted it manually, and then sometimes you use the machine to double check. Like, there's just nothing better than a person checking that piece of paper to make sure it is what it's supposed to be, and you have the right numbers, right? I've served as scrutineer so many times, and they'll say, okay, this ballot reads this, and they hold it up and I have to see it, and then they mark the sheet and I watch them mark the sheet, and I'm like, yep, I mean, this is the process. This is how we double check, triple check. I was part of a group, and we had to have a vote on something, and everybody just got a little piece of paper, they voted, and when we sent the votes to be counted, we always sent 2 people, right? It wasn't just one person, it was 2, because you want to have those checks and balances. And then I think there may have been a 3rd overseeing it as well. This is just responsible. We can't just give everything up to machines. No. We don't trust machines. I've seen the movies. You've seen the movies. Somebody can program the machine and affect the outcome. So we are not going there.
So I won't get into the weeds on the actual bill of the text itself, but I just got perplexity here to do a summary. Bill 20, Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act of 2024, introduced by the UCP government in Alberta, would grant the provincial cabinet sweeping new powers over municipalities. So kind of 5 main points here. The cabinet would be able to remove municipal councillors if deemed to be in the public interest, in quotes, without clear criteria. The cabinet would gain the authority to compel municipalities to amend or repeal local bylaws, such as the neutrality issue there in Westlock. The bill would allow political parties to run candidates in municipal elections in Edmonton and Calgary as I think a pilot program, despite a lack of public support for this change. I don't know about that. So we'll just, again, when you're asking these AI tools, it just pulls from what's available on the internet. So sometimes it kind of injects a little bit of opinion and speculation in there. It would ban the use of electronic vote tabulators in municipal elections, citing concerns about public trust. And this is what I mean by opinion. Though the government could not point to any recent issues, I just talked about one, although I didn't give you any specifics. And the legislation would also overhaul campaign finance rules, reintroducing donations from unions and corporations. That sounds fun. And reducing individual donation limits. That sounds like it favors a certain side, the side that's kind of in bed with the unions, not mentioning any names, Alberta NDP. But yeah, so that's kind of the main points. And I think, yeah, I agree with you that having just manual, pencil paper ballots with manual accounting, that's the way to go. No electronic tabulators, that's fantastic. But the ability for the cabinet to just remove a councillor in the public interest, let's just go back a couple of years when there was Kenny in the COVID cabinet. What if there was a councillor that wasn't going to impose restrictions or lockdowns or 6-foot distancing or anything like that? They could have removed them unilaterally because they were not in the public interest according to what the cabinet said. So it's a dangerous game we're playing.
You have a point there, but I do want to speak for a moment in favor of the idea of political parties being on the ballots for Edmonton and Calgary, and so why I support that. What I have found in observing the elections in Edmonton and Calgary is it's very difficult to discern values of a candidate. And so there'll be all these names and all these signs, but who really stands for what? And there's a lot of people that they will not take the time to research that candidate. What's the background on that candidate? Do they share my values? Should I elect them? There's so many people, they won't do the homework. And so then they go to the ballot box and they go to vote and they just kind of go, well, oh, I liked her sign, check. Oh, I've seen signs for that person, check. Oh, that name looks familiar, check. And that's how they mark their ballot sometimes. And that really concerns me. It seriously concerns me. It feels like a gamble. Like we might as well just play VLTs if that's the way you're going to vote, because you might as well throw it out the window. If you don't know who you're voting for, you shouldn't vote, really. And so the advantage of putting the political party on the ballot, and I mean, the two big provincial political parties, obviously, are the United Conservative Party and the NDP, right? They're the ones that have the most momentum. But those municipal ballots, they might also have other parties on there. So it might have one of the two main parties, or it might have some other party, right? Like there's alternative Conservative parties in Alberta. Or there might be candidates that don't run under any party banner, and they're on the ballot. So when they say you can put your political party on the ballot, they're not saying you have to. You could still run as an independent and you're not associated with any political party umbrella. So I actually think it's a huge advantage for the voters of Edmonton and Calgary to look at a ballot. And now you got this list of names. So you're going to pick your councillor for your ward and you're going to pick your mayor. And you're going to go, well, this councillor, this candidate is associated with such and such party. Such and such party somewhat shares my values. I'm going to go with this councillor. And because there are people with conservative values in Edmonton and Calgary, and I know a lot of them are feeling discouraged because in Edmonton and Calgary, there's been a definite advancement of socialist principles. And some of these voters have come to the point going, why bother? Like, why bother voting? Like, it's just going to move to socialism anyway. Why bother voting? If we put those political parties on the ballot, now they know who to vote for. Because they don't have time to do their research. They don't. They're busy working their jobs. They're trying to pay their bills and pay the carbon tax. So we got to help them. So I'm in favor of political ballot parties on the ballot. The other thing I'm in favor of is do not split the vote. So whether that's at, let's say, the municipal level, provincial, federal, don't split the vote. What you do is you get behind the party or candidate that has the most momentum. So in this case, we're conservatives. We get behind the conservative candidate that has the most momentum for that area, and we support him, period. Even if we don't like him 100%. If he basically has our values and has momentum, that's who we support. Like, so for example, Edmonton, whoever's going to run for mayor, there needs to be one conservative candidate. One, not three, one. And whoever that's going to be, okay? Maybe it's someone who was a conservative MLA in the past, whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's a former conservative MP. It's somebody with momentum and name recognition. And then on the ballot, it says he's a conservative and he's associated with such and such conservative party, whatever party that is. So that's what I think needs to happen. And that's going to serve us. That's going to serve our advantage.
So I think you make a fair point there. And I would say to anyone that is going to run independently, if you're not on Team Orange or Team Blue or whatever the case may be in your city or municipality, as we've been talking about through this interview, people don't really get involved. They don't really show up too much. Maybe they show up on election day thinking they're going to do their vote and they just pick because they saw the sign or whatever. It's your job to get yourself out there. You got to, and I guess in as little as obnoxious way as possible, get out into people's faces, like get into their feeds, get yourself out there, get yourself a good campaign marketing team, like get yourself out there. You have to, you absolutely have to, if you're going to have a chance, especially if you don't like either of the parties or whatnot, or the parties on the ballot, and you want to stand up against that just really, really hard. We learned that in the leadership race, that brand recognition does go a long way, right? Regardless of who the candidate is. So you have your work cut out for you, but I would just encourage everybody to anybody, just really, if you're going to run, you really got to put the work in and put yourself out there, and don't just be a name on a ballot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And like name recognition matters so much. So let's just pretend you live in a Dutch community. If you have a Dutch name, that's going to help.
Yeah.
Name recognition matters, and there's actually things people can do now, even though the election doesn't officially launch. Like you can't file your paperwork to run as a candidate till January 2nd, but there are things you can do now to contribute towards your win. So name recognition is one of those things. Write to your local papers. See if there's some way you can get your name out on even bench ads. So maybe you, obviously, if you're a realtor, well, then your name's going to be out on a lot of bench ads already, right? That'll help if you're going to run for office. Get your name out there somehow. Maybe there's a business you run. Maybe you could make a substantial donation to one of the nonprofit groups, and then you make sure that your name and that donation makes it into the media. Pull the strings if you have to. Buy an ad if you have to. There's things you can do now to help with the future, so that name recognition already has momentum.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Just going to share this screen here. This is what I read today, published today, May 2nd, 2024. I think
we're going to dial it back.
Yeah, exactly, because of the backlash, right? So in the face of widespread opposition, the Alberta government says it now plans to amend its contentious Bill 20 to further clarify elements that give Cabinet new unilateral powers to oust a councillor, as well as to repeal or amend local bylaws. Here we have Minister Groucho Marx over here. Bill 20, the Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act 2024, was tabled at the legislature last week, but drew near immediate widespread criticism. Much of the backlash came, and I'm not too familiar with this whole Chestermere situation, but Rick McIver here, as the Minister of Municipal Affairs, did remove the mayor and some council of Chestermere, and that is a bone of contention right now in much of the province. Much of the backlash came in response to those new authorities the government was granting itself, with Edmonton Mayor Amarjeet Sohi describing the legislation as intimidation. I'm no fan of Amarjeet Sohi. Moved away from Edmonton for lots of reasons, him being one of the many. On Thursday, a week after the bill was introduced, Municipal Affairs Minister Groucho Marx issued a statement indicating changes to the legislation were coming. We will be working with the municipalities to propose amendments to this legislation that clarify that this would only be used in very limited circumstances. Of course, you can trust us. We're good people. We'll make the right decision.
Groucho Marx.
Yeah, because of the, obviously because of the, and because he's a friggin' joker. The bill would grant Cabinet, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the bill would grant Cabinet the ability to remove a councillor if Cabinet deemed it to be in the public interest, though it sets out no criteria for how that would be determined, with McIver saying last week it would be decided on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so are you really going to trust this guy or anybody, really? I mean, I have a hard time trusting politicians. I've met that many that I trust. That many. One. And it's not Rick McIver, I'll tell you that much. So
I got mixed feelings about Rick McIver. Like, I wrote him during this plebiscite in Westlock, the whole bylaw neutrality thing, and I said the newly elected mayor is expressing a viewpoint on this. He should be neutral. And Rick McIver wrote me back after the plebiscite was closed, and so it wasn't timely. And he said it's okay for the mayor to express a viewpoint on an issue. And so I'm like, okay, well, where's the neutrality here? Because my understanding is mayor is supposed to be neutral chairman at a meeting. So he's not always supposed to guide it, right? So yeah, no, I got mixed feelings about this. I'm glad they're looking at it again. They're going to rein in the powers. As I said, there's some aspects about Bill 20 I agree with, but I'm glad that they're looking at reining in that section. That's good.
Everybody out there running for council, you heard it from Municipal Affairs Minister Rick McIver via Benita Pedersen here tonight. It's okay if you express your views, your political views. You can have an agenda. You can even financially support an agenda. So that works both ways, guys. Just take note.
I think this is Rick McIver's last term.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Move on. He doesn't share our values often enough.
There's going to be a few of them that is their last term. This is one of the things I just really don't understand, and I'm not a politician, thank God, but a lot of the people that are MLAs, not just MLAs, but some in cabinet that were selected and appointed as cabinet ministers of various portfolios are not the best kind of people. And I scratched my head at why those selections were made. And it's not because it was the decision that was right or the best person for the job. It was because, in my opinion, it was politically expedient or it served a political purpose. And that's my take on that.
Let's explore that for a moment. Okay, so we had all these individuals run for the leadership, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those individuals end up in cabinet. Mm-hmm. And perhaps the decision to put those individuals in cabinet had something to do with winning those supporters of those individuals. So if all you were into was political strategy, to an extent that makes sense. But I agree with you that when you look at the core values now of Albertans and the values of United Conservative Party members, like it's clear. It came through the policy submissions from last year. The policy submissions from this year, the policy submissions are already happening. It is clear what the majority of the members of the United Conservative Party want. And our values are clear. And therefore, our MLAs and our cabinet ministers need to reflect those values. And right now, we have cabinet ministers that are not reflecting those values. So they need to evolve and change very quickly. Or
we'll change them very quickly.
Just step down. Like here's a thought. What if a cabinet minister actually went like this and went, oh, well, I guess the way I've been going isn't the right way. So you got two choices. You can either redirect and say, okay, well, I better listen to the people and go the way they want me to go. Or you can say, well, the people want to go that way, but I don't want to go that way. Maybe I should resign my position as cabinet minister and give someone else an opportunity to step up and serve the people. Hey, maybe at least one of those guys could resign. What do you think of that, TJ?
I think that'd be great, but I think they like the gravy train too much.
Oh, yeah, they do get their benefits, don't they? But we could put some pressure on. We'll see.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing I will say is, the last AGM was fantastic. There's organizations like Take Back Alberta that are really educating the grassroots and the average everyday public on how to engage in their political parties and political systems. And in a way, like when we talk about the parents' rights issues, in a lot of ways, Danielle Smith's, whether or not she believes in a certain thing or not, her hand was kind of forced. And I just want to remind everybody that is in power right now. Look what happened to Jason Kenney. You're not immune from that. So I would actually encourage a whole lot more people. Like we had, what was it? Almost 4,000 people at the last AGM for the UCP on a provincial level. If you could double that, you can steer the ship. Like you'll change Alberta. And maybe those cabinet ministers won't step down, but with enough support in the base, they might not have a choice.
Well, obviously Rick McIver's feeling the pressure because he's dialing it back on Bill 20. So they're not giving the province too much power. So, no, that's really good. And we need more people engaged. So Take Back Alberta has been a part of that. There's been other groups that have been pushing the political engagement thing and teaching people how to get engaged. Oh, you buy a membership in the Conservative Party with the most momentum. Oh, you start going to the meeting. Oh, you see if you can join a board. Oh, you talk to your candidate. You talk to your elected representative. Build relationships. That's part of the key there too. Build relationships with your teammates, because these people that you're on a board with or you're in the group with, for all you know, one of those people is going to be a candidate in 3 years and then MLA in 3.5 years. and now you have a relationship with your MLA. How great is that? So people need to get engaged more, and I love the idea of there being 8,000 or 10,000 people at the conference this fall. Oh, that'd be super.
That would be super. Yeah, you mentioned something about boards. Every MLA, every constituency has a constituency association. Not a lot. Again, my education on the political system in Alberta was very fast and steep, and I'm still learning. And I didn't even know when I first got here what a constituency association was. But you can run for the boards there, and much like by-elections, nobody turns up for those. And you can just swoop in, and all of a sudden you have people that align with your values that are in control of the constituency association board, which is essentially responsible for a lot of campaign finances for that MLA if they're going to run, that candidate that's going to run in whatever election. You have a lot to say and a lot of pull, even on a small board like that. So, try to get involved in your local constituency association boards. I think, when is it? Let me look on Facebook here. There's one in Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House Sundry with Zane Novak. He's running for the president of that CA board. And I know Zane, and he is a super dude. Super nice guy. Red Deer.
Right on. Yeah, there's events happening all over the place. I'm on a board as well. Our board, the board I'm now serving on, doesn't have a sitting MLA, but it's okay. We've still got some great momentum. And, it's just such a super way to get politically engaged. And I love the idea of the people helping with the fundraising too. So fundraising is so important because you fundraise now, you create a momentum, you create awareness, because that election is 3 years away. There's things we can do now to prepare for the next election. And so the outcome I'd like to see at the next provincial election is more UCP candidates. Like, let's get some more in there. So you've got a Meet the Candidates event.
Yeah, I'm a day late on this. This was last night. But Rocky Mountain House is Jason Nixon's constituency. And, yeah, right.
I think he
everybody's favorite lumbering giant. But yeah, Zane Novak was running for president of this CA, this constituency association. Super nice guy. And I just caught this up here. There's an AGM coming for the Fort Saskatchewan Vegreville UCP CA on Tuesday, May 21st at 6 p.m. So if you are in Fort Sask, Vegreville, show up on May 21st. That's where your AGM is, and that's where you're going to be able to and educate yourself on who your candidates are. You're going to be able to go there and have a say as to who represents you on that board. And, whoever that candidate is, the candidate is chosen by the UCP, right? You don't get to choose the candidate, but they have to work with you as the board. And so you can kind of stack things in your favor as much as possible by making sure you get enough people out there to have a say, to get the right people on that board. Very, very important. So May 21st, make sure you check that out, guys, at Vegreville, Fort Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I actually know some of the people out there, so that's good. The key is in the engagement. Like, for too long, people with our values kind of took a step back and went, oh, I just want to go to work, earn my money, pay a few taxes, and live my life. And we just kind of allowed other people to step up into these elected positions, administration positions. But some of these people don't have our values, and so they start making decisions that take us to that path of socialism. And so I'm just so glad so many people are awake now to this. And I don't want to see people suffer further. I just want to see them step up now and get engaged in these various ways. And so my number's on screen, 780-349-0181. No matter where you're located, if you're in Alberta, outside Alberta, if you're looking for suggestions on how to get more engaged politically, I've got hundreds of suggestions for you. I'll just give you a few, though, so you're not overwhelmed. Another one of the tools I use is tinyurl.com/teamconservatize. And so you go to that website and you sign up. You make sure you put your postal code and stuff. And what it is we're building teams in various communities, mostly across Alberta, but we're branching out too. If you're from outside Alberta, that's fine. And you list some of your skills. You list if you want to run for office, and we help build a team, because you can't do it alone. You need a team. And even if you're not running for office, come be part of a team to support a candidate that has your values. Yeah.
Awesome. And also, they can find you here.
Yes, allfiredupforfreedom.com is my website. On there, I actually talk a lot about Agenda 2030 and what it is, because there's some people that don't yet understand it or the implications of it. So I've got that on there. And back in January of 2023, I actually made 12 giant banners. They're each at least 6 feet tall, 22 feet long, and they say #reject Agenda 2030, allfiredupforfreedom.com. So I still have some of those banners available. And if you have, if any of your viewers have property on a high, busy traffic area, we could set up one of these banners. Usually it's better if it's like attached to hay bales or the side of a building. They're made out of silage wrap. And we could be saying #reject Agenda 2030, allfiredupforfreedom.com. And hopefully it'll help people kind of connect the dots that when you have socialists in government at any level, municipal, federal, provincial, and they start pushing certain policies, that's part of the Agenda 2030 plan. Mm-hmm. So even yesterday, I was at the municipal development plan presentation in Westlock, and they have words like diversity on there and environmental sustainability these certain terms that I consider very triggering, because when you research Agenda 2030, those are terms they're using. And I'm like, oh, which way are we going here? So I certainly did some pushback yesterday about the municipal development plan.
Full circle back to the Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, right? It's about bringing municipalities under the umbrella of the UN for the purpose of what? Sustainable development goals, right? Which is in line with your Agenda 2030. You know, fewer people, no cars, like less farmland, more electric, like all that kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all this.
Yeah, grooming people into dependency. That whole universal basic income. You know, there's some people who think, oh, that's just great, guaranteed money. And I'm thinking, you don't get it, do you? As soon as you become dependent on something for anything, so universal basic income grooms people into dependency. Well, now that you're dependent, it might be gravy at first, yay, free money. But later on, what's going to happen is there's going to be a whole bunch of strings attached to that money. Oh, you can't have your universal basic income unless you drive an electric car. Oh, you can't have your universal basic income unless you take this injection that we call a vaccine. So just more people need to wake up, right? Now, TJ, you and I are probably preaching to the choir here. I bet the majority listening right now are already awake to all this.
We have some haters watching too. we got some guys spurging in the YouTube comments.
Well, welcome to the haters, because we just want to wake you up. But TJ, you and I should offline one day plot about how we are going to reach people in that other mindset, because chances are not enough of them are tuning into this broadcast. And I think you and I could come up with some stuff, maybe figuring out ways to use the mainstream medias to get our messages through mainstream media, so we can reach the audiences of mainstream medias, because those are people that aren't awake, right? So anyway, I look forward to plotting with you.
Absolutely. Benita, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you giving me about 2 hours today. That's very generous of you. I really appreciate that. Guys, allfiredupforfreedom.com is up on the screen there. Make sure you check that out. Also, let's not forget tinyurl.com/teamconservatize to get connected to people around you. We have municipal elections here in Alberta. I believe it's October 9th, 2025 or something like that.
October 20th,
20th. Okay. So October 2025, like Benita said, is not that far away. Start to plan now. If you're going to run, get people around you that are going to support you. If you're not going to run, find someone that is and get around them and support them. Make sure we fill our town councils with people that share our values, and let's turn this place around. Benita, thank you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. Everybody, make sure you come and tune in. Next Thursday, I have Handy from Handy News on. We're going to talk about some of the stuff going on in the U.S. It's absolutely crazy. They passed some crazy legislation in the last couple of days, and we're going to talk about that and a lot of other stuff every Thursday night here on Rumble, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Catch us on Wagons West. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Benita, once again, thanks for coming on. Good to chat with you again. It's been a while.
Yep, it's been great. Thanks. I'll keep watching your Facebook page.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Where are we here? And there we go. All right. Ciao. Okay, Benita, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I'll just end the stream there.